Hi, this is Margaret Hopkins, Superintendent of Grand County School District, and welcome to this week's School District Update. Today we're going to tackle a huge topic, and I do have to say right up front that the information that I'm going to try to fit in approximately 10 minutes really takes about an hour and a half to talk about. And I encourage any of you to give us a call at the district office, make an appointment. I would love to sit down with you individually or in a small group. We could have board members come in if you want details on this topic. And the topic for today, for this week, is what is a voted leeway and why we need a voted leeway. And so just to review what we went over last week, remember that the board is looking at balancing competing demands in our community. There are people who want no tax increase, limited tax increase with moderation. So we've got looking at everything conservatively. Some that support the leeway and want to see full restoration. We have our community survey that we put out in February, so we know what's important in the community in terms of restoration and keeping our district where it was. The board also has to pay attention to health and safety items. We are finding that salary stabilization of our employees, I mean, we've known this all along, but this is critical, and it's not being talked about a lot, but we are needing to really look at our employees and their needs and what's best to attract and retain excellent employees to our county and our district. And also, we do know what works well for our students, and we want to make sure that we keep those in place just based on research data and what we're experiencing. The wild card in all of this is we have had a 14.7% cut in state funding since 2009. That equates to about $1 million. So we're balancing and juggling all of this as we go into our June voted leeway election on the 22nd of June. So I want to take our wild card and move it to our next screen. This is always hanging over our heads, this state funding shortfall, because we don't ever know how much it's going to be and when it's going to come. But just as another review, in February and March, we talked about how schools are funded. And if you remember, we have what's called the general fund, and this is primarily salaries and benefits. Then we have capital outlay, which goes into building maintenance, summer maintenance, and we also have other restricted funds. And so if we were to look at this as our existing funds, and I want to label this our upcoming year. So this is 2010, 2011. And we're going to look at, to start with, these two items. One is what happens if we pass a voted leeway. What happens if we don't pass a voted leeway? So this is the upcoming year. So first of all, we have to pay attention to this because this becomes one of our problems, and that is that we've got to cut $1 million. Oh, if you remember back in February, all of this, because it's the general fund, these little lines, just they're employee names. These are the names of our teachers that we're paying out of the general fund. So the state has cut about $1 million. So this is our cutback that we're seeing. And I'm just going to crinkle it up because basically it's our problem here. And so we have this much money that we're short. And we have this many people that we have to cut back. If the voted leeway passes, what that does is give us some extra funding to use. And The nice thing about this is that it's ongoing funding. So this is this coming year. This is the next year and the next, which we'll get to. But keep in mind, if the voted leeway passes, a voted leeway is something that the state has put in place. The legislature's voted in. It's a mechanism where we, as a school district and our county, Grand County, can vote to tax extra for our schools. So right now, across the state of Utah, of the 41 districts, there are 8 districts that have not voted themselves voted leeways, and we're one of the 8. All the other districts have voted this extra money to come into their schools. This money stays locally. It doesn't get dispersed to the other school districts. It stays with us. And so this coming year, we have this shortfall. If the leeway passes, we have a little bit of money here that we could look at, but the board is very committed to not raising taxes at all this first year. And so the budget has been developed. And it's developed based on, if you recall, we did get a one-time donation. And that means that we have funds for 1 year to bring back some of these staff members and to keep us off the 4-day week. So we're going to fill this shortfall hole with a donation. Also, the state legislature this year is saying, well, okay, for 1 year, well, actually for 2 years, but we have to go 1 year at a time. For this year, we can also move capital outlay money that's restricted and must stay down there. It usually can't be used for salaries, but for this year, we can move some of that money up here. And so we've got a budget right now for the school district based on filling this shortfall with one-time donation and a one-time transfer of money. And remember, we have the capacity to do this one-time capital outlay transfer each year for 2 years, but we call it one-time funding because it's not ongoing. So this is what the year looks like, and you'll notice we don't have to use our leeway money this year. But the problem is we have the state funding shortfall. Last year, in the middle of the year, the state said, everybody send us back X% of money. And out of nowhere, we had to send back $50,000. The year before, it was more than that. It was a couple of $100,000. And so this is the wild card.